Prager U released a video recently that got like 1 million views, and it was goofy even by their standards. They're going to talk about freedom. Of course, they're going to talk about freedom in the abstract, so we can talk about freedom and what that term actually means. But I'm going to break this down bit by bit here. I think it'll be entertaining, and hopefully we'll be able to squeeze some educational value out of it. So let's go ahead and get right into it.
I want to tell you something that everybody once knew, and now many have either forgotten or never learned. Pay very close attention. America promises you freedom. America does not promise you love. Let's start with the freedom part. It's all right there in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Free speech. Freedom to practice the religion of your choice.
Oh, right, the U.S. government's only job is to protect freedom of speech, like when they persecuted Daniel Hale, Chelsea Manning, and Julian Assange for leaking information about the U.S. drone program and killing civilians, or when they persecuted Edward Snowden and faced him to seek asylum because he leaked information about the U.S. government spying on people's personal information through their cell phones. Clearly, the U.S. government upholding the freedom of speech, as Prager U is arguing here. And the U.S., of course, upheld freedom of religion when they launched a program with Bolivian dictator Hugo Banzer called Be a Patriot, Kill a Priest, when liberation theology was taking hold in Latin America and left-wing religious ideas were becoming very popular. The U.S. launched this campaign to kill any left-wing priests or even torture them, torturing and killing nuns in many cases. Clearly, the U.S. government upholding freedom of religion. So, yeah, I can't argue with this first part. Good job, Prager U.
The purpose of government is to protect your freedom, period. America was a rough and tumble place in its early days. It still is. Let's hope it always remains so. You don't want to live in a country where all your needs are taken care of by the government. That's not how you become great. That's how you become dependent, vulnerable, and truly oppressed.
You just described workers under capitalism right now. You say that we don't want to become dependent on the government, but we're dependent on capitalists because in our current system, capitalists have hoarded all the resources. So if you want to have shelter, food, and water, you have to find a capitalist to sell your labor to make sure you get enough money to buy those things so you can survive. Things like healthcare and other basic necessities of life are not taken care of. If in our current system, the government did provide the basic necessities of life, shelter, food, and water, I would feel a lot more freedom because I wouldn't feel the need to constantly sell enough of my labor power to get enough of a slice of the resources to make sure that I can survive or my future family can survive.
America is a land of opportunity for anyone of any color. Just follow some basic rules. Get an education, work hard, act responsibly, and you'll have a good shot at a good life. But you might also fail. You might fail a bunch of times and then succeed. Or you might succeed and blow it all. That's America, a never-ending dance of risk and reward, all made possible by freedom.
Well, yeah, I guess that's just good advice for life, work hard and get an education, but there are stupid financial blockages in our system built in the way of getting an education, right? Where we have the price of college that is continually skyrocketing, making it harder for poor and working class people to get to college, making college and academia more of a bourgeois thing, more of an upper class thing. And this myth that they're pushing then too about America's about freedom, right? This abstract concept of freedom because you can get all this money and you can just blow it all, right? Like when the last crash happened for COVID, you saw the people at the top just lost all their money, right? No, the government gave them $6 trillion in bailouts as 37% of small businesses went under and a record number of people are going to end up being foreclosed on their homes. And as people's rent costs are skyrocketing because America is essentially a financial oligarchy. Our country is dominated by banks. And then you have these Prager U goofballs babbling about freedom and how the people at the top can blow it all at any second. No, they can't. If they blow it all, the government's going to come along with a $6 trillion stimulus and working people are going to face the brunt of the capitalist crisis.
Freedom is America's source of power. And the denial of that power to Black people and others at the inception of this nation and for nearly 200 years after its founding remains a stain and a source of pain. Yes, Some of the founders had slaves, but almost all of them knew that it was morally wrong and would one day end. When Thomas Jefferson wrote the words, "All men are created equal," the slavery question was resolved. The only issue was how and when. And it took a lot longer than it should have.
Huh? The founding fathers had slaves, but they knew it was morally wrong? That was your justification? And when he says, it took a little longer than it should have for them to get rid of slavery, they knew it was morally wrong, but they eventually got rid of it. Yeah, after years and years and years of torturing the slaves and seeing how much productivity they could get out of these slaves and how much money they could make out of these slaves. And you want to know why they knew in their heads it was morally wrong, but they couldn't stop? Money. Because once you have a market system and a constant exchange of commodities, capitalists aren't going to want to give up the labor power that makes them those commodities, no matter how immoral it is. So you had plantation owners and capitalists and the founding fathers saying, yeah, this is morally wrong, but look at all this money we're making off the cotton. And it kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going for years until they had to fight a bloody civil war to end slavery as the mode of production. It was finally ended by what you could call class struggle. And now you see similar stuff with capitalism, where, as I mentioned, you have a financial oligarchy in power with people like Dennis Prager making tons of money off things like fossil fuels, as all the scientists are telling us the planet is potentially going to be destroyed, but they can't stop themselves because they got to keep chasing the dollar. And it was the same with the American capitalists and the founding fathers in charge when we had slavery. They're like, oh yeah, this is morally wrong, sure, run out the back door with all the money.
But it did end, and a lot of good people died on the battlefield to see that it did. And when it ended, giants like Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass understood that Black Americans would have to succeed on their own as free men and women.
Frederick Douglass literally said, yeah, we got rid of slavery and that's good, but now we need to get rid of wage slavery because capitalism isn't good either. You left that part out, Prager U.
They had no illusions that the government would save them. They only wanted what all Americans should ever want the government to do: protect their freedom.
To be controlled by the workers.
But the founders never promised love, not to whites or blacks or anyone else. During his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, Martin Luther King referenced freedom 20 times. He never once spoke the word love. Why not? Because America has nothing to do with that. If you want love, and we all do, look to God, your family, and your friends. The government doesn't love you and isn't supposed to. The government is a poor and abusive provider. It offers the bare minimum and fosters a dependency that undermines freedom.
The thing about love is so weird. It's like they're anti-love. I have a feeling that a lot of people at Prager U didn't get that much love as children. Now they're like, nobody deserves love. Quit asking for love. Quit trying to create a society based on love. Okay, it has to be based on hate. Nobody can actually truly feel love in this world except for money. And that's just the way it has to be. That kind of seems like their whole ideology. I don't know. The love thing's odd. But again, with this government-created dependency, 78% of workers live paycheck to paycheck. That's people who work, right? That's dependency created by the capitalists because you guys have all the resources. So we're dependent on selling our labor power to you. That's the only dependency in our current system. That's not created by the government.
During the 2020 Black Lives Matter season, NBA players actually wore jerseys with the slogan, "Love Us," emblazoned on the back. You can't demand love from people. Love is freely given or not given at all. Telling people not to call you this name or that name, or not to act this way or that way, consciously or unconsciously, because it offends you, will not bring you love.
All right, now we know our man here has just never felt love in his life, because he's saying NBA players, LeBron James, who were putting BLM on their jerseys to speak out against systemic violence in the justice system against black people. They were just desperate for love. They didn't have the love and attention that commentators for Prager U have. Like, give me a break.
Love is your mother's smile, or that look your kid gives you when you come home from work. Love is that man or woman who protects you when you're scared and provides a home where you can flourish. And love is what God offers you every moment of every day.
It is fascinating how Marx talked about religion reinforcing the mode of production and reinforcing capitalism. And he says under feudalism, Catholicism reinforced the mode of production, saying the nobles and the priests and the people in power who controlled the land and the means of production and the armies and the state were appointed by God. And then you had a rise in Protestantism, and they said, just have faith in the market, stop thinking about philosophy, stop analyzing the system around you, stop looking at the contradictions of capitalism and trying to fix them and create a better system that's more optimal for human beings. Just have faith in the capitalist system, turn to God, right? Your happiness can't come from the economic system, just keep going to work for us and pray to God. Right? Don't start to question that system. It's a tale as old as time, and it's interesting to see that the propaganda hasn't changed too much. It's just been reformulated.
To the government, you're just a social security number, nothing more. And I'm okay with that because I don't want or expect the government to know or care about me. Mostly, I want the government to leave me alone. I'm proud to be an American, and I'm proud to be a Black man in America. Blacks have made enormous contributions to this country. But let me tell you what our single greatest contribution has been. We have been this nation's moral conscience. Blacks have forced America to live up to its best ideals.
Based?
Our righteous pursuit of freedom, not love, compelled this nation to seek and find its better self. It's been a long, hard road. But we're close to Dr. King's promised land. We have reached the mountaintops in politics, in medicine, in space, in literature, in sports, in music, in business. No other majority white country has ever been led by a Black man or woman. Blacks can demand opportunity. That's every American's right. We can demand freedom. That's every American's right. But we can't demand love. That's no one's right.
Yes, you're right. Black people did build this entire country, and they at first built it as slaves until they struggled and fought for increases in freedom, being told all along the way by reactionary white people and capitalists, no, stop fighting for this. Just accept what you have, accept your place in the current system. And now, years later, as Black people are saying, 24% of the world's prison population is in the United States, and it's disproportionately Black. You have cops killing people in the streets, and they're getting off scot-free. As they're demanding changes to these things through things like BLM, you're telling them to be quiet. You're making up some narrative about how they're just demanding love. No, people are just demanding basic things. They're demanding an end to the enormous inequalities that we see in our society, both materially and subjectively, with the way that police treat Black people. And you're telling them to be quiet, just like reactionary white people and reactionary capitalists have told Black people fighting for increases in freedom to be quiet for years. But I do agree we shouldn't be asking for love, right? These people are never going to give us love. We need to organize, and struggle against. Don't ask them to give us stuff. Organize and fight for increased freedoms, both materially and subjectively.
And that brings me back to God. Blacks have suffered mightily and prospered mightily in America. But in our long journey, we've always been headed in the right direction. Until now, because we have taken a wrong turn away from God, where we have, as a community, always found strength and solace, and toward government, which offers us nothing but empty promises. I'm Jason Whitlock for Prager University.
How do you start the video by saying the government protects religious freedom, but then end the video by saying you have a choice between religious freedom and government? That doesn't really make sense, Jason. This whole video didn't make sense. I couldn't believe how much they talked about love. But yeah, pretty funny. I love Prager U. Thank you for watching this. I hope it was entertaining. Maybe you learned something, maybe not. Either way, oh well. Solidarity, everyone. Peace out.